Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Jill Valavanis. I'm the Fine Arts Coordinator here at the Sonoma Community Center. And I'm delighted to have you this evening, both through Zoom and here present in person, here in the print studio, which is also room 208 upstairs in the Community Center. I am delighted to present to you this evening Cassidy Skillman, our printmaking artist in residence. She's been living and working here in the Sonoma Community Center over the last 2 weeks, working on her reduction woodcut prints, is that correct?
Yes.
And also some relief printmaking using Legos, which you'll see in a little while. A little background about Cassidy: she grew up in Walnut Creek, so she's a Bay Area native. She learned about printmaking at Diablo Valley College and was greatly influenced there to complete her studies, her BFA, undergraduate studies at UC Santa Cruz, where she, 5 months after arriving, she was faced with the shutdown due to the pandemic, and thus moved back home and was able to set up a workspace at home, which was a challenging but very fruitful experience. And now she will be heading to Chicago to earn her MFA in print media. So enough from me, I'll turn it over to Cassidy. If you have any questions, please go ahead and unmute, and you can ask the questions that way. And she'll be sharing a lot about her work. Thanks again.
Hi there. Thank you all for coming. My name is Cassidy Skillman. I am a printmaker and a sculptor. This experience at the Sonoma Community Center has been phenomenal. I have been the artist in resident for the last 2 weeks, working in the print studio. I have been able to not only meet the community directly at the center, but also get to know the community outside of the center as well, and I'm very grateful for that. Today I am showing the prints that I have made in this last 2 weeks, including new projects, old projects that I just can't be finished with, as well as just playing around with some new materials, including Legos, which I'm very excited to show you all. So to start with, some of my inspirations are, one, the changing climate, as well as the way society, circles and flows. I am mostly showing prints that go along the line with climate justice, climate awareness, as well as just a way to respect the world around us, as well as remember that we every day change it as we go along with our lives. So with me today, I have a few of these pieces. I began this one, why don't we say, on, I think it's your left. This piece I began at UC Santa Cruz when I was there for a short time. It was a print that I was assigned for a 1-layer woodblock print. And as I was creating it, I just wanted to add more color to it, and I made sure I left a lot more on the plate in order to go back and rework it at another time, which became this time, and I was able to add more additional layers to this print. This is also a reduction woodcut, so I'm working with one plate and gouging the plate at in different locations on the block in order to open up other spaces for other colors. With this print, I began to work with kind of a new method for myself. There was an an instructor here for a painting class, and she was using a stippling brush to create shapes and use stencils, and I loved the concept of dabbing a little bit of ink here and there in order to bring color into a specific area. So I began doing that with this print, where in the coral as well as the hands and such, I was using different methods where I would either I would roll up the block, wipe off the selected areas that I wanted to be specifically that one color, like in this coral shape here, and then in other areas where I wanted a little bit of a different variation in color, I would leave the layer that I rolled up with the brayer on, and I would mix the ink on the wood block. With that, I did the exact same concept in this one over here with the ice cream cone in the world. This was a concept I am reworking. I had begun this a little bit more recently when I began this concept of, again, doing the selective inking, where in this time it reminded me a lot of a la poupe in etching, where you're, again, putting selective colors in these individual places in order to create that effect. But again, it takes a lot of time, just like a la poupe does. And so each of these blocks has a lot of love and care put into them, just because it takes a lot of selective choices and decisions. And I'm very thankful to the kids at the Sonoma Community Center summer camp, because I was in a little bit of an artist block and I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. And I went downstairs with a few options, and it was an overwhelming ice cream choice. So we went with the ice cream cone, and again, on the lines of climate justice and just the idea of, everyone likes ice cream, but the concept with ice cream is that it's cold and it's climate controlled, and the ability to have ice cream is thankfully a privilege to us all where we've come to this point in this life where we know we've created these machines that create this climate control, and at the same time we're counteracting the climate outside of the climate control device. So it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition. Along with that, I have the pieces behind me. This is a block. It was another reduction wood cut, and this block I had done for it's considered a print exchange, where we are creating a certain edition of prints. You send it to the print facility or the studio, and they then send you back other people's prints. So I did this for the first time. It was an amazing experience through the Emerald Print Exchange, and I spent so much time on this little wood block that I just really wanted to play around with the final layer. And with that, I hand dyed paper. All the paper that I mostly work with is Kozo, and with Kozo, it's not really one that you want to get wet, but with very selective amount of moisture, you can dye the paper. And I had a little bit of difficulty. I was dyeing it with my ink. I've been using Caligo Safe Wash ink, which is a more environmentally acceptable ink. It is water-based. It's water municipal ink, and with that I can mix it into water and incorporate a little bit more water into the ink in order to create a dye. And so I've been using this on not only this project that I couldn't step away from with the pencil crystals, and also with the to up here where I took a print that, again, a reduction woodcut, and recreated it into a one layer using that final layer of the reduction. So with that, I also was able to experiment and play a little bit. I mostly do relief printing, so anything with a relief sparks some sort of inspiration. I was inspired by a few images I had seen online, as well as just kind of the playful and fun things that have been happening around the center, that I just really wanted to do something that was carefree. And so I had asked Jill if she had any Legos, and she said absolutely, and we were able to find the pieces in, the Lego world. They're called tiles. They're the flat faced pieces of the Legos. And with that, on a Lego baseboard, I built up a jig using all Legos and a place to register the paper, as well as create the relief on the board. So with that, it was kind of this, it felt very kid-friendly and very fun to be able to take something that I know very well, with specific materials, pins, tabs, perfect right angle, and I was able to create that on a Lego baseboard, all playing with Legos, and create a registration system. And I definitely think it's something I will try again. I love to play with color. I love to play with geometric shapes, and that was something I was very drawn to with this project. Yeah. So with the simple yellow, red, and blue primary colors, you can create multiple colors from that. So we have greens, purples, oranges. I think there are even times when they all overlap and create a really nice dark brown, which is always fun too. Yes. So yeah, I've definitely had an amazing time being able to experiment, and with experimentations, there are always some hiccups here and there. With printing, it is a very to the books medium, and you have to kind of just go with the process, hope for the best along the way, and allow the press and all of the hard work to just all happen instantaneously and create this layer of a print. And with that, I had a couple different hiccups, and I can show you these over here. I had a few instances go down where with the print of the water on this coral face, that was the best terms, but on this piece of coral here, there's a double image because of the registration was only slightly off, and it creates this haze of an effect. It almost looks partially blurry. Whereas even on the other side, just because it was so subtle, the other side has, an even registration to the point where it's only partially blurry. Along with that, I had an instance where I dropped the paper on the inky woodblock. It happens to the best of us. It's something we can't always help, but this is one of the reasons I'm very thankful to have been taught to always make a large edition, because the edition size can shrink, and it can shrink very fast. Because with that, I had another issue where I printed the block upside down. You get into the rhythm of things, you're doing the same thing over and over in time, that there's bound to be something that happens, and it's something that you usually see pretty quickly when something goes wrong, because everything is supposed to look the same. But with that, I also am showing some of my wood blocks. I always find that the block is, especially in a reduction, depending on how much is still left, there is always something still to see and even play with. And that's kind of what I've done. I've gone back into these two pieces, but with that, I always like to show them just because it is a form of art to be able to whittle wood, and the block has, it's where a lot of the time gets put into it. So you create this relationship with the block, you understand the block and what its limitations are and how to use the wood to your advantage. And I started as a painter, began sculpting, and woodblock feels very sculptural to me. The ability to take this flat piece and take a piece off of it, but then work into it as it is a two-dimensional piece, and then thus creating this three-dimensional / two-dimensional relationship that then creates this two-dimensional form. It's very interesting to me. So this is kind of my go-to medium. I'm also interested in, I also work in lithography, etching, a little bit of monotype here and there, but mostly woodblock is my go-to. And I am absolutely thankful for the experience to come to the Sonoma Community Center to create these pieces. All that you've seen was created in this last 2 weeks, and it kind of just says that the opportunities are endless, even in a time constraint. With that, I have only excitement to see where and what more the studio and the community center can do for the print community. So it's just extremely exciting, and I'm very thankful to you, Jill, for letting me come and have this art talk and have this experience.
You want to show us the process?
Yeah, why not? Let's do it. I can, get this guy up and running if we need, but these are both Griffin presses. It is an Oakland, California-based company. There are a few big named press companies out there, and Griffin is one of them. I have used many presses in my life, from small to big, and I have never seen an electric press. And so it was really amazing to get to work with a new piece of machinery, and that's kind of always the fun part of art, seeing all the different techniques and different materials that have the same relationship but also work kind of differently. This is a beast. It roars, it rumbles, it shakes the floor, and it is incredibly exciting to be able to use. Along with this smaller press here, which I used for some of the smaller wood blocks. It's a hand crank, just a traditional press, which more people are even used to. It's something that I am trained on when it comes to this press. It's a little bit like ceramics, where you're trusting this machine to do the biggest part for you, and you're just hoping for the best. And so when it comes to a hand crank, excuse me, when it comes to a hand cranked press, you can feel the block touch the press, and you can feel almost how much pressure the press is applying, to the point where you can know if it's not enough or too much, or if things have gone wrong. Whereas, this press here, you feel it just in the slightest amount, to where you train yourself to know those little feelings in order to know that the block is in contact with the press and something is happening under there. And so it's been really phenomenal to, again, learn a little new trade in the print realm. Again, this is a Griffin press. It is beautiful. It is phenomenal. again, I've never seen one like it, so it's definitely worth checking out and coming to the center to play with. Yeah, it's all is good. It has been just, again, too much fun. I don't know if there's any other word for it. I mean, art is amazing, art is great, and I think more people need to do it. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for seeing my art and supporting me as well as the community center. I hope all is well in your lives. Thank you.
Questions?
Yes, and we are open to questions always. Yeah, why don't we go stand on over here? This is my dad. Thank you. Yes, Mom, did you want to start?
Yes. Can you tell us about the evolution of the pencil crystals and what you did here that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, so the question was to talk about the evolution of the pencil crystals and talk about what I really enjoyed while playing with this concept here. The evolution of the pencil crystals, it started as a sculpture where I believe it was in 2016, I began cutting up and sawing and chopping and breaking pencils in order to create a crystal-like structure. A crystal is formed through the process of heat and pressure and through time and a lot of hard, work in the natural realm. And with that, I found that pencils have the similar structure to that of a quartz crystal. And with a quartz crystal, just like wood, it doesn't, the way it breaks, it fractures, and it doesn't have a continuous crystalline form. So with this piece, I not only found that connection between quartz and pencils, but I also found a connection between pencils and crystals, where this piece of material of a pencil that we use from the beginning, you learn how to write and how to draw and how to mostly do any sort of beginning work and education from the use of writing and using a pencil in universally. And when it comes to the correlation of education and the growth of a crystal, again, there's a lot of pressure. There is a lot of, in similar terms, heat, and it just takes a lot of time to grow as a person. And with that, the pencil crystals symbolize that, and the difficulty and the wanting and the effort to get a good education, to be educated, and to grow. And with that here, I took this form that I'm constantly playing with and constantly growing and evolved it into a way of seeing it a little bit differently, whereas now, instead of just seeing the block, I began to focus a little bit more on the paper and the multiple colors that I can grab from one layer using a different method, or a newer method to me, of dyeing the paper. And hopefully one day I would like to, grow these large and, with different colors. And so this is just a growing project for me. So this is just another step in the evolution of a pencil crystal. But yes, Jill.
Can you tell us about a couple of influential printmakers?
Yes, at least in my life, I'm a little biased. I learned under Toru Sugita, and he is incredibly inspirational in my life, through the use of material, through the imagery, and through the passion. Working under such a brilliant printmaker has driven me and has also driven my work, and to be a little bit, I have a kind of a graphic style, but to really put as much detail and marks and depth into a piece. Along with that, I find inspiration, a lot of inspiration from the California Society of Printmakers, as well as, traveling artists like Swoon, Obey. It just a constant influx of inspiration from the print world. It is just incredibly exciting. And, but conceptually, I'm constantly influenced by social justice prints, as well as movie posters, and the ability to put out a message through an image, whether or not with text or not, but to bring people together through this poster that just gets people to join in and come together and just push a little harder. So those are the little things that I'm interested in. But yes, that is definitely one of my favorites. And did you have another question?
Well, I wanted you to talk about the three-dimensional origin of the pencils, and then the colors, why you selected the colors.
Oh, well,
the paper.
The colors of the paper are, I thought about it, and I didn't want to just put any color because I didn't want it to feel like a bunch of colored pencils or such, but the colors of the paper, I was thinking more of like say with the green style, I was thinking of the colors of the Ticonderoga paints that they use. So the classic yellow, as well as their logo in that it's kind of a chrome green, but didn't have a way to go metallic, so we went with green. And then, a classic eraser and graphite. We have, I think it was the wood and then the paint color, as well as, again, the opposite, the green and the yellow. So just constantly thinking about the little details and trying to make the concept as true as it possibly can be and read as clearly as it possibly can. And sometimes that takes a little bit of thought before just jumping into it. And again, that's part of the process of printmaking, where we really have to think ahead in order to succeed by the end. And just again, with playing around and being able to experiment, we don't always fully think ahead. So I had a few mix-ups. I used a wrong kind of kozo and it kind of just disintegrated. I had some blotches within my application of the dye. So yeah, it's just a constant work in progress, especially if we can only hope that all will go well, and we can only hope that we did enough to succeed, but sometimes things change and that is okay. But yeah, it just, all the little details have been incredibly thought through. I try and do as much as I can to do so. And so yeah, I think your other question was the 3D nature of the print, or of the concept. Again, this is created from a sculpture. So it's a little bit difficult to create depth in a flat object, and with perspective and a lot of consideration for how this would transfer into a print. It took a little while to figure out how I would create the depth in the print, and I guess the reduction has a little bit more detail in order to see, but with this piece, again, the transferring of, or the transition from a 3-dimensional piece to a 2-dimensional piece, I'm playing with that that ability and that material range, and I'm working with what I know and what I am able to understand for the media in order to do as much as I can to be unlimited. So I hope that answered the question. Yeah.
If you could choose one of your prints or your projects, which is your favorite and why?
Between them all, I think I had to have, I think that the Legos was the most fun, but the ice cream is the one I'm most drawn to. Just because the colors, I love contrasting colors, as well as just the fun nature of it being, the world being an ice cream cone. And we all know that the world is going through a very hot spell, and the idea of, a dropped ice cream cone just being so tragic, but also the neglect of the world being also just as tragic. It's just, or even more tragic, that it was just a really fun little play on concept. So I definitely am gonna have to say the ice cream in the world. It is one I really enjoyed. It started with a little pencil drawing a couple years ago, and now it is a multi-layer print. So, yes.
Just another question.
Yes.
What I want to say is I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom and your brilliant mind with all of us, not just those here, but those out in the world. I just wanted to thank you for sharing your awesome work.
Well, thank you for coming. I thoroughly appreciate you all for supporting me and for being with me on this journey. It is only the beginning. I'm excited to get into another studio and create more and come back, hopefully again for another residency or a class. So yes, it has all been good. Any more questions?
Is there anyone here on Zoom who has a question? You can unmute and ask your question.
Hi there.
Hi.
I had a question about your Lego print. I really love them. Did you create 3 different blocks in order to print those?
Yes. So with the Lego baseboard, I was able to create a one layer. I started with yellow. I was able to put all those little pieces onto the Lego baseboard, ink it up, print it, and then and then right after that, and here comes the baseboard. These are my registration corners, so I registered the paper right into these corners and lined it up against this relief of the brick, and with all of the tiles, they were all placed into the center, into the range in which I wanted it to be printed. And so I did the one layer of yellow first, and then I went on to the red and then the blue, and it was all simultaneously printed. It was printed on the same day in one session, and so technically, yes, 3 blocks, but it's gonna need to. I think the Lego printing world is gonna need to find its terminology, because it's one plate, but additional items are placed onto it, so technically 3 blocks, but 1 plate. So yes, we'll go with 3 blocks, yes.
Great, thank you. I really like that one.
It is definitely a fun one, thank you. But yes, were there any more questions? Either way, I'm very thankful for you all to have seen this and to come and have a little bit of the community center on your Thursday. And we both really appreciate you all for joining us. And I can only thank you, Jill, for giving me this opportunity. It's been phenomenal.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Good luck
Thank
in
you.
Chicago.
I'm definitely going to come back and visit you all. Yay.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.